Hello YouTube, how's everyone doing? Today I want to do a very unique video talking about the St. Valentine's Day Massacre and the real history behind it. This video relates to GTA Online because every year on Valentine's Day we had the Valentine's Day Massacre content, and most people that I've talked to don't know the real history behind the GTA Online event. It's based on an actual historical event. The majority of people that I've talked to have not heard of it. I like history a lot, especially about the 1920s, which this update was centered on. The clothes, the Roosevelt, and even the Gusenberg, the SMG, are all based on the actual event. So here we go, the real history behind the Valentine's Day Massacre. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre happened in Chicago on February 14th, 1929. During this time there was prohibition, and alcohol was illegal in the United States. This is where mafias became very strong. They earned their illegal revenue by smuggling alcohol from Canada or by brewing it. Chicago was one of those cities where bootlegging ran rampant. Prohibition was passed in 1920, and John Torrio was a man who worked for Big Jim Colosimo, one of the biggest mob bosses in Chicago. He founded the Chicago outfit. Torrio was also the nephew of Colosimo's wife. He told Colosimo that they needed to expand into bootlegging because Torrio claimed that when alcohol becomes illegal, there will be a huge black market for it and that they will be able to make millions of dollars from it, and he was right. Torrio also brought his friend Al Capone into Colosimo's organization to come work with them. Al Capone and Torrio planned to have Colosimo killed because he would not go into bootlegging. On May 11th, 1920, Torrio had called Colosimo and informed him of a shipment that would arrive at his cafe, and while he was waiting, he was assassinated, shot in the back of the head, most likely by Frankie Yale, a hitman that Torrio had brought in, or by Al Capone himself. After Colosimo's death, just like Torrio predicted, he took over his empire, rapidly expanding into bootlegging. Al Capone had helped him run the Chicago outfit. Torrio was not the only one moving in on bootlegging, as there was other gangs in Chicago who were starting up their own operations. Torrio called a meeting between all the different gangs to work out an agreement on who controls what territory, who can sell where, and how they would cooperate between each other. Torrio was a man that was all about business. He was not against violence, as he would gladly kill someone, but only as a last resort. He saw violence as being bad for business. He always tried to do the best thing for business and avoid confrontation, specifically gang wars. This is where he met Dean OBanion, the boss of the Northside Gang, which controlled northern Chicago. The Northside Gang was mostly Irish-American, but pretty multicultural as well, having various German and Polish members, and even some Italian members. Jaime Weiss, one of OBanion's lieutenants, was Polish. Due to the agreement between him and Torrio, OBanion was given all of the northern side of Chicago and the Gold Coast as his territory. The Chicago outfit would stay out of his territory, not smuggling any alcohol or interfering with any of the Northside Gang's operations. In return, OBanion agreed to stay out of the Chicago outfit's territory, which was the south side. However, OBanion was not like Torrio. Banion was very aggressive and had followed through with the deal for 3 years, but he got greedy, and he wanted more control. He wanted to move in on the Chicago outfit's territory. OBanion vented his frustration towards Torrio, because not only was the Chicago outfit making a lot of money in bootlegging, they also had a casino in Cicero, a neighborhood on the south side. Torrio, like the businessman that he is, wanted to avoid violence and confrontation. He wasn't happy, but he gave OBanion the right to move some alcohol in Cicero and gave him a share in part of the casino, which was known as the Ship. OBanion pushed it and took advantage of what Torrio had offered him, even too much. He basically told a lot of speakeasies, which were illegal bars, to relocate to his fronts in Cicero. Now OBanion was going to take even more of Torrio's customers away from him. Torrio got angry and told OBanion not to push so much into Cicero, but he refused. Torrio, as a last resort, tried to offer him a cut of the outfit's brothel profits, which were illegal prostitution businesses. However, OBanion angrily refused. The Jenna brothers, also known as the Jenna crime family, who were a Sicilian mafia and had controlled large portions of the west side of Chicago, started moving in on OBanion's territory in the north side. They started selling whiskey in the north side, and OBanion was furious and demanded help from Torrio. Torrio refused and did nothing. Torrio basically was like, I have been very generous to you and offered you parts of my own territory and a share in my own casino. This is not my problem, it's your territory. You deal with it on your own. And he had a point. If you think about it from his perspective, OBanion and the Northside Gang have caused him so many problems, constantly being aggressive and wanting more, and they now want his help. Torrio had no problems with the Jenna brothers, and the fact that Torrio is Italian is probably a reason he didn't interfere. Torrio did not want to start a gang war. He was all for just business. He didn't want to get into a fight with the Jenna brothers, and he didn't want to start going to war with them in their territory, and this was his rival's territory. Why should he get involved? OBanion, in response, he started hijacking the Jenner brothers' whiskey shipments and told them to stay out of the North Side, and the Jenner brothers in response tried to have him killed. They went to the Union Siciliana, which was a powerful political union, and they asked Mike Merlo, the president, for permission to kill OBanion, but Merlo refused, not wanting to start a gang war. OBanion felt he was untouchable, and he talked of one of his associates, John Duffy, in February 1924, who had murdered his bride in a drunken rage. Duffy begged OBanion for help getting out of town, and he agreed to help him. OBanion had told Duffy to meet him in front of the Four Deuces, a club ran by the Chicago outfit. Plenty of witnesses saw Duffy get into a car, and some claimed they saw OBanion, but later changed their statements. Duffy's body was later found in a wooded area outside of Chicago. OBanion did this on purpose so the police attention would be directed towards the Four Deuces, which is known to run gambling, prostitution, and bootlegging operations. OBanion basically turned up the police heat on the Chicago outfit. Torrio was furious, but let it slide because he didn't want a gang war. He just wanted to do business. OBanion had heard from a police contact of his that the Ciabian brewery was to be raided. This was a brewery that both the Northside Gang and the Chicago outfit had huge shares in. He told Torrio that he wanted to sell his share and move on, retire to Colorado, that he was done with bootlegging. He wanted out. Torrio was relieved, and he was tired of all the problems OBanion had caused him. They agreed to meet at the Ciabian brewery on May 19, 1924, and OBanion was selling it for $500,000, which today would be close to $7 million. They finalized the deal and were meeting, and then the police raid came, which OBanion was well aware would happen. Torrio and his associates were arrested, and OBanion was let off, most likely because of corruption. Torrio lost the brewery, he lost close to $7 million in today's standards, and he was imprisoned. He felt humiliated, and this was the final straw for him. Torrio was a man of business. He was against violence and killing, seeing it as a last resort, but here he was sick of it. Torrio thought, I have done everything in my power to avoid war. I have given in to so much of O'Banion's demands. This guy has pushed in on my territory, tried to frame me and my organization for murder, got the police after us, and now he scammed me out of $7 million in today's standards, and the brewery, and he got me arrested. This guy has got to go. Like I said earlier, Torrio would not support violence, but when it was the last resort in his mind, and he had no other choice, he would. And here, he felt humiliated. Business was sacred to him, and being backstabbed in a deal was it for him. O'Banion basically signed his own death here. However, even though Torrio wanted him dead now, he could not really do anything due to the Union Siciliana not supporting killing O'Banion. Later in the same year, Merlo, the president of the Union, died of cancer on November 8, 1924. O'Banion has caused even more problems at this point because the boss of the Jenna family, Angelo Jenna, had racked up a debt in the ship, which, remember, O'Banion was given a share of. O'Banion threatened him and told him he had a week to pay off the debt. Angelo felt insulted, and now the Jenna brothers wanted O'Banion dead as well. On November 10, 1924, Frankie Yale and two Jenna hitmen, John Scalise and Albert Anselmi, entered O'Banion's shop, Schofield Flowers, which he owned. They pretended to buy flowers for Merlo's funeral, but were there to kill him. Yale shook O'Banion's hand tightly, and Anselmi and Scalise had fired multiple shots at O'Banion, striking him in the chest, the throat, and the head, killing him. Even though Anselmi and Scalise were Jenna associates, they were sent in reality by Torrio, who had it with O'Banion. O'Banion's murder would spark a 5-year gang war between the Chicago outfit and the Jenner brothers, and the Northside gang. Jaime Weiss took over the Northside gang. His full name was Henry Earl J. Wojciechowski. His last name was changed to Weiss when he immigrated from Poland, and he earned his first name Jaime, being nicknamed that. I don't like when many documentaries refer to the Northside gang as Irish American. While much of the gang was Irish American, it was very multicultural, with Irish, Polish, German, and Italian members. The leader here was Polish, which many documentaries covering the gang don't mention. Jaime Weiss was a childhood friend of O'Banion, and aggressively went after Capone, Torrio, and the Jenner brothers. He first tried to have Al Capone killed on January 12, 1925. Him and two lieutenants, Bugs Moran and Vincent Druzzi, shot at Capone outside at a restaurant. They had wounded his chauffeur, but not hit Capone. This is where Al Capone decided on building his famous bulletproof car, and this is where the Roosevelt comes from. The Roosevelt is Al Capone's car. It is the exact same model, the 1928 Cadillac Model 341 Town Sedan. Al Capone's car had 1-inch thick, bulletproof windows on all sides of the car, steel plating armor in all doors, and an upgraded V8 engine. Unfortunately, in GTA Online, it's not armored, but this is the car, and the reason it's called the Roosevelt is because Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the later president of the US, would be using this car. After the failed assassination on Capone, Jaime went after Torrio. On January 24, 1925, he, along with Moran and Drucci, ambushed Torrio as he went shopping with his wife. They shot him multiple times, hitting him in the lungs, the jaw, the legs, and the groin. Jaime tried to shoot Torrio in the head to finish him off, but the gun jammed. He instead started kicking him, and Moran beat Torrio with a club. Torrio actually survived that attack. Once he recovered, he was also arrested and served a year in prison because of prohibition charges. He thought to himself, I'm either going to end up getting arrested and go to prison again, or I'm going to get killed. He saw the gang war spiral out of control and said, I'm done, and decided to retire to Italy. He handed over his empire to his friend Al Capone, who now became the boss of the Chicago outfit. Jaime wasn't done here. He next went after the Jenna brothers. On May 26, 1925, Moran killed Angelo Jenna, the boss, in a car chase, shooting him, causing his car to crash. On June 13, 1925, Mike Jenna died after him and his associates got into a gun battle with the Northside Gang. The police arrived, got into a fight where the two officers died. One cop shot Mike Jenna in the leg, hitting his artery, where he bled out and died. Antonio Jenna, the third brother, was killed on July 8th after he was lured to Grand Avenue and Curtis Street by one of his friends. Two men walked up to him, one shook his hand, and the other fired at him, killing him. Jaime had set it up to be the same as OBanion's murder. The last three brothers, Pete, Sam, and Jim, they fled Chicago. Now it was a final battle between the Northside Gang and the Chicago outfit, run by Al Capone. Al Capone was later in the lobby of his hotel in Cicero with his bodyguard when Jaime and a few of his men did a huge drive-by with Thompson submachine guns into the lobby. Al Capone was not hit, and he went after Jaime now. They had fired hundreds of shots to kill Capone. Jaime was called the one man Al Capone feared. On October 11, 1926, a few Chicago outfit associates hid in a nearby building and waited for Jaime to show up at Schofield's Flowers, which the Northside Gang used as their headquarters. When Jaime pulled up, they unloaded into him, hitting him and his associates several times, killing him. With Jaime dead, Bugs Moran has now taken control of the Northside Gang. Moran agreed to a peace treaty with Al Capone, but would not keep it. He would hijack Capone's bootlegging trucks and destroy his businesses, and Al Capone would do the same back. This would last for years, and finally exploded in 1929. On September 7th, 1928, Antonio Lombardo was murdered, who was Al Capone's consigliere and the president of the Union Siciliana. He was shot dead along with his bodyguard at the intersections of Madison Street and Dearborn Street. Many of Capone's friends were killed over the years, and on January 8, 1929, Patsy Liraldo was murdered. He was the president of the Union Siciliana in Chicago after Lombardo and a good friend of Capone. He was shot in his home on orders of Bugs Moran. At this point, Al Capone has had it, and he planned a hit to wipe out the Northside Gang once and for all. This is what will be known as the Valentines Day Massacre. On February 14, 1929, at 10:30 a.m., two police officers entered the warehouse at 2122 North Clark Street, where the Northside Gang had one of their operations. They ordered everyone up against the wall, and then when everyone was against the wall, one officer signaled two other guys with suits to come in. They were holding Thompson submachine guns, and the two officers had shotguns. They fired on all the men against the wall, firing over 70 bullets. The two officers were not actual cops, but gangsters dressed as cops. They kept firing to ensure everyone was dead. They then walked outside, and the two fake cops held the two men in suits at gunpoint, looking like they were arresting them. They put them in a fake police car and drove off. This is considered the biggest gang hit in American history. They had gunned down 5 of Bugs Moran men and 2 men who associated with the gang. Moran was not there because as he was approaching the warehouse, he spotted the police car, which made him panic, and he turned around. Out of the 7 shot, only 1 survived. His name was Frank Gusenberg. Frank Gusenberg. Does that name sound familiar? It's the name of the Thompson submachine gun in GTA Online. Gusenberg is the only survivor of the Tommy gun, getting hit 14 times. When the police questioned him at the hospital, he said nobody shot me and refused to talk. He died 3 hours later. This hit was very well planned, and nobody was ever charged in it. However, it's obvious Al Capone ordered it, and it was done by experienced assassins, which indicated him, and the fact that he had problems with the Northside Gang for years. The Northside Gang at this point was crippled. They would never recover the power and influence they had years earlier. A few years later, Bugs Moran gave up entirely, leaving Chicago, and on July 9, 1946, he was arrested for a robbery in Ohio, and he was sentenced to 20 years in prison. He was released in 1957, but was rearrested for another robbery and sentenced to 10 years. He did not even serve a year in prison, dying of lung cancer on February 25, 1957. He died completely broke. As for Al Capone, even though he was never charged with the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, this drove headlines and got people's attention directed towards the mob. The public was outraged, and no amount of bribery could save him at this point. The police really started looking into him, and they got him on tax evasion. On October 11, 1931, Al Capone was sentenced to 11 years in federal prison, originally in Atlanta, but then moved to Alcatraz Island. Al Capone was paroled on November 16, 1939, and he would never return to being a boss. He was sick with syphilis, and he tried to seek medical care at Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore, but was denied. Union Memorial Hospital took him in, and he donated 2 Japanese cherry trees to the hospital. For the remainder of his life, Al Capone retired to his mansion in Palm Island, Florida. On January 21, 1947, he had a stroke, and on January 25, he died of a heart attack. He also had pneumonia. His health was terrible, and that's how Al Capone ended his days. I hope you guys enjoyed this historical video. I wanted to make a unique one covering the St. Valentine's Day Massacre on GTA, as so many people don't know the real history behind it. The car, the gun, the clothes, it's all based on Chicago's gang wars in the 1920s. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, drop a like, and if you're new to my channel and enjoy my content, subscribe. I wish that a game company would make a Mafia game in this time period, during Prohibition, in the 1920s. Nobody has done it. Rockstar should try a game in that period. I would like to see a Mafia update on GTA Online one day as well. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care, everyone.